16 Maine residents now have the chance to own an Elver license. Maine residents at least 15 years old who haven't had an Elver license suspended are eligible to enter the lottery open now until March 4th. Those who win the lottery will be given the chance to apply for one before the start of the season on March 22nd. There are only 425 licenses available through the state. The new licenses are now available after the old ones in 2022 and 2023 were not renewed. Those who are granted the license will be able to fish a minimum quota of 4 pounds. Elvers, or tiny baby eels, are often worth more than $2,000 per pound. You can enter the lottery online at maine.gov/Elver lottery or by visiting the Department of Marine Resources offices in Augusta. Each application will cost $35, and most of the application fees goes to the Eel and Elver Management Fund.